Greetings and salutations all you true, beautiful individuals. This is another Opium League. My name is Eric, flying on that millennium fucking hog. So, on today's epi, as we're hitting week 4 action of Global Power Rankings. Things starting to set themselves even beyond the top 5 a little bit, even though there was a large amount of fluctuation. But it feels like starting now, teams that are ousted, kicked out of the top 20, hard-pressed for them to make it back in, or just don't have faith that they will. Aside from, I will give the caveat to some of the LCS teams who need more time. I'm looking at you, Team Liquid and Lion Gaming, who obviously are not on this list, but maybe potentially have the potential to get back in. Double potential, yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense. But we begin with one other squad not on this list, and a squad that stole that spot by beating them in the 20 spot. We're talking about NIP Ninjas in Pajamas, who recently beat IG 3-1. And despite IG having far and away the most convincing series that they've had in 2026, it was against OMG. Even OMG beating EDG was a surprise for them to get there, so support Rammus or not enough for IG to crack onto this list, because NIP did beat them in somewhat convincing fashion, and now they get the matchup against DLG to kick off the LPL playoffs, which that'll be a fun one. And again, do not be sleeping on these teams outside of the Ascend group, especially when the IGs of the world are looking incredibly weak from that Ascend side of things. DNS Supers, your first LCK squad alongside there. We had a full move over of LCK squads this week, and obviously DNS getting the impressive wins about back-to-back against KT and Nogshim are why they're on here, and simultaneously why KT and NS are booted out of the top 20. And last week we had Hanwha Life still hovering just outside of the top 10, and honestly you probably could for the entire rest of the season, but it just feels a little bad, a little strange now to have a squad still hovering anywhere around the top 20 when it's going to be weeks and weeks before you see them play any games. So we have made the difficult decision of officially saying farewell to HLE for just Split 1. Just Split 1. They'll be back Split 2, most likely with a vengeance to make some noise on this board, but they are not here for now. Unfortunately, number 18 is where our curse has come in, because LNG, I was hyping them up. I'm ready for them to make the playoff push, make some upsets. They get the unfortunate luck of drawing World Elite and come up short against them, even though there were moments, angles where LNG could have, would have, should have won this series. They have a 9k gold lead in one of the games that they throw away, and then they slightly over push in game 4. The cast was already talking about silver scrapes in game 5 to nearly come back from this reverse sweep. It ends up not being the case. Kars' Akali is way too much for them, and really it was kind of a mid lane gap, or at least a mid-game stepladder difference throughout this series. Karis versus Bulldog. 1xN did not deserve to lose this series, and Krako absolutely did. But if LNG, or World Elite for that matter, but especially LNG, if they had drawn OMG or IG, I know that's not how the formatting works, but they are better than both of those squads, better than NIP. It's just the luck of the draw, and I probably gassed them up a little bit too much. I have that power to curse them, but they'll be back for Split 2. They will, assuming they keep the core of this roster together, they'll be making some noise still in 2026. It's just coming up short. You can call that copium if you want, but unfortunately, no longer will we see 1xN and the boys. Western squads, first ones on the list, G2. Still a difficult squad to rank, and you might argue, based on the games they played in LEC versus so far, maybe they don't deserve to actually be in the top 20. Maybe we're still giving them a little bit of that G2 buff in terms of, previous iterations and the power level that we know this team is capable of reaching, but whatever it may be, they're in the number 17 spot, and I'm at least expecting them to climb higher now that we're in the best ofs and we have this full double elim bracket stage. This is where G2 makes their money. This is their bread and butter, and they're going to be sailing up from this 17 spot. We've still seen them beat some good teams, and the majority of the wins they have gotten this year, they still have the biggest goal differential at 15. When they win their games, they've kind of been dismantling the opponents. Fnatic was just the latest victim to suffer a sizable goal lead at the hands of G2. So it's very much been a coin flip team, and 6-5, basically 500. But when they win, they dominate. When they lose, it's a little bit ugly, and they are behind a squad in FlyQuest who had their first loss of the year, but it was against Cloud9. They managed to take a game. The first game Cloud9 has seeded here in 2026, and all still positive signs for FlyQuest, and there's, I think, lots of things that they can take and learn from that first matchup as they immediately get the rematch to kick off the full playoff bracket in the LCS, and it's an opportunity to see what this coaching staff in Apollo and Big Card, who obviously are both former players, I think both at one point with CLG, or at least associated with them, but we'll see how they can adapt, because it's almost like a winners-losers bracket to be immediately back on the rift against them. So we'll see what new angles Fresh Takes FlyQuest bring in that next match against Cloud9. More EU squads. You got Movistar Koi and then Team Vitality, who MKoi, I mean, saved their regular season by showing up with a big win against Na'Vi, and you could tell they were really locked in for that match against a good opponent, formidable opponent that you will see is higher than them on this ranking, but much like G2, expecting MKoi to climb higher and higher and be a top 3 team again as we get into those best ofs. Vitality's been one of many surprises here at LEC Versus so far, but last 2 weeks they've beaten Carmine Corp, Giant X, and Movistar Koi, and the resurgent split out of both Humanoid and Carzzy. Carzzy never really fell off too badly. He's still been a solid upper tier 80 carry in the LEC, but obviously we know how things ended on Fnatic. For Humanoid, took a split off, blah, blah, blah. He's looked pretty good so far. Not too many suspect Humanoid, why are you pushing for that extra wave and dying for no reason moments, which is a positive. And Linces continues to grow into a solid jungler. And Nako, I stand by it, top 3 top laner in the LEC, and has been going back to last year. So lots of very positive things to see and talk about with Vitality so far. World Elite, as we kind of talked about, not only did they have a competitive Game 5 loss, well, at least competitive 4 games, and then they lose Game 5, but a competitive series overall against Top Esports, and then the pop-off Akali performance out of Karis to eliminate LNG. But you see 13 and 12, obviously World Elite and Top Esports, similar power levels, I think, as you look ahead and now go to this playoff bracket where World Elite, I mean, they get the tough draw against anyone's legend. And I know the non-Ascension groups are inevitably going to have kind of the harder matchups against the top-tier echelon group in the LPL, but World Elite can hold their own, as we already saw against TES, even though they're not top tier. The last 2-3 weeks, TES have looked a lot better, and we kind of lumped Dem, IG, Weibo, all kind of in a group for a long time in terms of that bottom of the table in that Ascend group. But really it was IG that took that torch and ran with it all the way to whatever it was, 7, almost 8 game losing streak, and somehow they're blessed with Weibo in their opening matchup. I don't know what's going on over there in the LPL, but IG somehow get the easier matchup than a squad like World Elite. Even though World Elite have looked a whole lot better than IG for the majority of 2026. Last squad on this list, they're up a spot from last week, is Na'Vi. Even though they lost that finale against MKoi, they did earlier have a convincing win against G2, and I think it's a surprise how good this team has been in round robin. I mean, them and Vitality are the 2 biggest surprises. Even having both of them on this board after the round robin stage of LEC Versus, I think most people probably would not have anticipated, and they're going to come back down to earth, I think, in best of 3s. We've seen Giant X and other squads over the years have a dominant round robin. This best of 1 scenario and format is nothing new in the LEC. We've had it for multiple splits now, but we've seen other squads, even Fnatic finish at the top of the table and then I don't want to say flounder, but not nearly match the level that they did in that round in these best of. I've got a hunch that both Na'Vi and Vitality are going to fall prey to that because it is a completely different beast when Fearless. Welcome to the club. Welcome to the real meta LEC. Finally playing Fearless over a month into the season when everybody else has already been doing it for the entirety of 2026. We slide on to the top 10 now, and a squad we've alluded to a couple of times, Weibo Gaming, holding strong at the 10th spot, even though that's knocked down a few pegs. A solid 500 across the board, 13 and 13, 5 and 5 overall, and Elk has been the guy to talk about on this roster, has been the standout. Xiaohu at times has been the standout, but even though they're in that 10th spot and in the top 10, they've beaten JDG a couple of times in the head-to-head. They have been competitive at times in select series against AL and BLG. I think they're still on fraud watch. I think there's a chance that Weibo could still bottom out very easily. Again, they have IG in the opening round of playoffs, so maybe not bottoming out right away, but I'm not sure. They could either go on a deep run to finish top 3 or lose immediately back-to-back series after beating IG, because I don't see them losing to IG right now. But who knows? That could be the ultimate bottom out for them. Then we get to the West, holding strong ahead of them. Cloud9 gets bumped up over Weibo to that 9 spot. Another convincing, maybe not convincing, but impressive series against FlyQuest, and we've spent a lot of time hyping up Blabber and how good he has been to start the split, and we stand by that. But let's give a moment to shout out your boy APA, because so far he's been, in terms of laning numbers, right there with somebody like Quid, who's pretty much the consensus best mid laner in the entire league. And I think the things people get misconstrued about a guy like APA, who you think he has an ego because he trash talks so much, he's in the all chat, he loves to do that, but he's still a team player on the Rift. We know he's not the guy who's like, feed me the resources, let me get ahead, I need all the kills. He's got the highest vision score percentage among all mid laners. Okay, so he's doing his job, he's buying wards, he's sweeping, he's doing everything he needs to do. And how about playing 3 Azir games so far? A champion that he historically has been heavily criticized for not quite being at the highest level. Now, he's only played 3 champions still this whole split. That is Azir, Talia, and then a single Nico game. So the champion pool allegations still need to be sorted out. But so far, early signs, 2 thumbs up. Big check marks for APA fitting in with this Cloud9 roster. They're still behind Carmine Corp, and I know them losing to Heretics had the Lost for Tones fans pulling their hair out, really upset. And I mean, they had locked up first. This is a tale as old as time. Team secures first. Yes, they're not going to be playing 100% on the Rift. You heard Khalees saying, we were trying out some comps and, a little bit of extra practice. And there's nothing wrong with that. That happens in esports. That happens in traditional sports when you have the luxury, the privilege of being able to do that in a game. Take advantage of it. Why not? You're at the top of the table. You've locked in first. See if you can cook something up heading into playoffs. So don't be KC for maybe not being completely locked in. That's just a mental state you can't access on what is, for their side, essentially meaningless. I say all that to say losing to Team Heretics does not make me feel any less good about Carmine Corp heading into these playoffs. They're at the point you expect squads like Koi and G2 to be at this point in the season, but they are absolutely the most consistent, the most dominant team so far in the LEC, and they have been since basically the last 3 weeks. Maybe week 1 you didn't have them at that point. I think we had Koi ahead of them because Koi won that head-to-head, but basically since that loss, they have been pretty easily the best team in the LEC, and Yahoo has, I mean, we've seen a lot of import mid laners in the LCS and other regions, slowly rev up and have to get acclimated. Hasn't really been an issue for him, and hasn't been an issue for Busio, quickly being the best support in the LEC alongside the best ADC in Khalees. So excited to see them roll into playoffs. JDG, you will note, bumped outside of that top 5, and BNK stands strong. They haven't played a game, but JDG, again, they lose the finale of that regular season. Is it even the regular season? Again, I really don't know what to call it in the LPL. We'll say split one regular season because that just makes sense. But I'm more confident in them than Weibo for sure, even though they've lost a couple of head-to-heads to Weibo. I can't imagine Honkyu, Jinchia, Gala, even Vampire as a young player continuing to develop. I don't think these guys are going to have bad back-to-back-to-back, like 3 games in a row kind of bad performances. I have more faith in them turning it on for a series, even though they're maybe overall a little less experienced than a squad like Weibo. I don't think JDG are frauds or anything like that. I think they are an easy 3rd place team in the LPL right now with the potential to, make it to a finals. Maybe even if everything really clicks for this squad, we're talking about potentially winning the split. But that would require a little bit of a level up as we head through the playoffs in the LPL, because there's a bit of a 2-headed beast at the top of the table. Now we get to that top of the table, talking top 5, and you'll notice, okay, there is an actual change. 3 spots up getting climbed. The Delusion is back for us, and Dplus Kia. I know we've done LCK ranks and other things. They've kind of been behind BNK since the wrapping up of that first round of the LCK Cup, and I think Dplus is a team that actually might be better when they have that opportunity to have to play an extra round, to have to go through the play-in stage, to have to warm up against weaker opponents, because boy did they warm up against DRX, who they completely dismantled out of the stratosphere. You'll see DRX is not on this top 20, so we're not getting too hyped about Dplus, despite Showmaker getting 25 Magi stacks before 20 minutes, despite him completely styling on a Cassiopeia in a 1v3 scenario and looking like absolute vintage World Championship level Showmaker. We're not getting too excited. We'll just go back and go through, okay, what are the positives here? Shiwu still has that top 3 top laner potential in my eyes. Lucid, you could say the same for jungling, right behind guys like Owner, Canyon, Kanavi. You can start to talk about Lucid when he's on his good days in that same conversation. Smash, I think even with the relatively small sample size that we have here so far in 2026, is an upgrade over aiming, over any AD carry that Dplus has ever had, even the Deft era. That was a tail end Twilight Year career of Deft. So Smash is looking like the best ADC they've had in a long time. One thing we're waiting for is Career to shore up some of the mistakes, and this is rookie growing pains, rookie development that you need to be patient with. And I still think you've seen glimpses of this 2v2 and glimpses of Career also being an upgrade, and one of the best supports that Dplus has had, again, going back to maybe the Barrel era. And first Barrel era, not the second round of it where, again, the Rammus stuff was coming out. No. Positive signs for Dplus. I'm sure it's very delusional, but they still get to warm up one more series before they have to match up against the beasts that are T1 and Genji, who, yes, spoilers, no games on the Rift, as Mark and I said. They don't need to play games for a month, and they're still going to be number 1, 2 on this list. 3 losses combined between them. They are just kind of the dark thundercloud that's overgoing the LCK bracket, just waiting. They are the summit of Mount Olympus for all these squads in South Korea to eventually match up against them. Dplus, again, we kind of talked about it, but BNK, Dplus, is there a level that they can reach where they can actually compete with Genji and T1? And I think the honest answer is you would need an off day, or at least a 70% level kind of day out of both Genji or T1 to be dropping a best of 5 to anyone that is not each other. But we'll see. There's been crazier upsets, but I've just kind of gotten used to seeing a Genji T1 best of 5 in playoffs, often twice in that loser's bracket or on the winner's bracket, and then in those grand finals. And the rest of the top 5 also remains the same. Dplus, why we talked about them so much, they're the only real change. You still got AL and BLG in that 3-4 spot. again, as we head into these playoffs, BLG does feel a lot more vulnerable. I'm not about to sit here and say that NIP is going to take them down, but I think even NIP could be competitive against them, and AL against World Elite will be pretty big favorites in that one, even though World Elite are on this list and there's things to be excited about for them. But you look at this LPL bracket as a whole, first off, my God, is it a long bracket? And my God, is it going to be dragged on? Because, we've got the 2-week break in the LPL. Not quite 2 weeks, but almost 2 weeks before we're going to get back on the Rift. So it's a little bit strange. Usually it's like in the middle of the regular season, I feel like the LPL has this break in between the last couple of weeks, and then they come back and just bang, 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 churn it out with a couple of super weeks where teams are playing back-to-back days. There's like 7 games a day, blah, blah, blah. But this year it's a little different where we've completed the Knights Road play-in stage, whatever buzzword you want to call it, and now you're going to have this big break where all of a sudden it feels like being the first and second seed for BLG and AL, it doesn't really matter. Everybody's getting the same bye week heading into it. And okay, yes, you got the easier matchups in WE and NIP, but like IG and Weibo, either one of those might be easier heading into this split. So it really feels a bit meaningless, this first and second seed. But I do think AL are going to, I don't think they drop a series going to finals. I think they're the squad that are the big favorites, even though they're 3-4 right there on these global power rankings. I don't see AL dropping a series until finals. Maybe they lose there, but I think AL is the easier lock to at least be a representative at first stand this year. And remember, much like the LCK, LPL's getting 2 squads going. So I think AL's the easy check mark before the main bracket actually starts to lock in there. BLG, a tentative second spot, but I mean, even squads like Weibo, JDG on a given day, if they bat a little higher than punch a little above their weight on the day, then BLG is absolutely prone to an upset, and I think they lose before they get a winner's matchup against AL before running it back to get there through that loser's bracket. But that is it today for your Week 4 Global Power Rankings. My name is Eric. Thank you to all you stunners for hanging out as always, and you best believe we will catch you on that flippity flip.